Kian acted without hesitation. He grabbed Ray's arm and pulled her into a nearby room, slamming the door shut behind them. They could hear the muffled sound of approaching footsteps and the shuffle of bodies outside. Isabella's a part of this whole operation. She's not just working for Tara, she's working with Blackwood. This was never about helping us. It was always about getting rid of us, Kian said, his voice harsh but steady. Ray's eyes widened as the realization hit her with the force of a wrecking ball. So this whole plan, everything we've done. She couldn't finish the sentence. It was too much to bear. Kian took her by the shoulders, his gaze softening as he looked into her eyes. It's not over yet. We'll find a way out of this. Together. Just then, the door crashed open, and men rushed in, weapons drawn. Without missing a beat, Kian shoved Rhea toward a hidden alcove and drew his gun, opening fire on the intruders. The tension in the air was thick, every bullet, every movement a life or death game. Stay low. Stay quiet, Kian ordered. Rhea, heart pounding, watched as Kian fought off their attackers, each movement calculated. They couldn't stay hidden forever. They needed a way out. A way to turn this around. Come on, Kian said as he shot another man, his eyes locking with Ray's. This isn't over. Rhea and Kian found themselves in the heart of the mansion, Blackwood's private office. It was a place of power. A room that overlooked everything, a room where all the secrets were kept. But this time, they weren't going to play by Blackwood's rules. As they approached the desk, Kian grabbed a folder marked with Blackwood's name and began flipping through the contents. There were pictures, documents, evidence of the empire that Blackwood had built. But there, in the midst of it all, was something that stood out, a letter written in black ink, signed by both Blackwood and Tara, outlining a plan to take control of a new city. This is it, Kian whispered. This is the key to everything. But just as they thought they had found the answer, the door slammed open. Tara, Kian said, his voice a mixture of disbelief and rage. She stepped into the room. Her eyes cold and calculating. You really thought you could defeat me? She sneered. You should have stayed away. The final confrontation was about to begin. But the question was, who would come out victorious?
The air crackled with tension as Tara entered the room, her presence darkening the already dim atmosphere. She was dressed in black, her movements deliberate, confident, as though she knew this was the moment where everything would fall into place. Did you honestly think you could beat me? Tara's voice was smooth, taunting. After all these years, after everything, you're still so naive. You really thought Isabella was your ally? She was just another pawn in my game. Kian's grip tightened on the folder, his eyes hard as stone. His heart raced, but his mind was clear. Tara may have thought she had the upper hand, but she had underestimated them. Underestimated him. You've lost, Tara, Kian said, his voice low but with an edge that promised destruction. We've already taken your pieces off the board. It's just you and me now. Rhea stood close to him, her breath shallow, but her resolve firm. She was terrified, but she would not let fear control her. She had come too far. There was no turning back now. Don't be so sure of yourself, Tara sneered, her lips curling into a dangerous smile. You're both too late. Blackwood's already dealt with your little allies. Isabella was just the start of my plan to get rid of all of you. Kian's eyes narrowed. Where is he, Tara? Who? Tara played dumb, though her eyes flickered briefly. Blackwood. I know he's here. This is where you planned everything, isn't it? Kian's voice was steel, and as he spoke, he took a slow step forward, each movement calculated. Tara laughed bitterly. You think you're in control? You're not even close. Blackwood is already preparing for the next phase of his plan. You've walked into his trap. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. They weren't just in Blackwood's mansion. They were in the heart of a trap, designed specifically to lure them in. Rhea's heart pounded in her chest as she glanced at Kian. What now? Kian turned toward her, his gaze full of determination. Now we finish this. Together. Without warning, the lights flickered and went out. The room plunged into darkness. A few seconds later, the sound of gunfire echoed through the hall. The battle had begun. The chaos in the dark was immediate. Kian instinctively pulled Rhea to the ground as gunshots rang out from every corner. Tara's men were everywhere, moving in the shadows like phantoms. They were relentless, trained and well-armed. Rhea's heart raced as she crouched beside Kian, trying to make sense of the madness. In the blink of an eye, the world had shifted, and now they were fighting for their lives. The only thing she could hear was the pounding of her own heart, the rushing of blood in her ears. "We need to get out of here now," Kian said, his voice fierce but calm as he scanned the room, his eyes glowing in the dim light. "Follow me." Rhea nodded, but the noise of the battle outside was overwhelming. She couldn't see where the enemy was, but she could feel the weight of their presence everywhere. Close, too close. She couldn't let them get caught. With Kian's lead, they ducked behind a pillar, narrowly avoiding a barrage of bullets. Rhea's breath was sharp in her throat as she followed Kian's every movement. He was like a shadow in the dark, silent, deadly, always a step ahead. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man dressed in all black, his eyes hidden beneath the mask of darkness. Kian didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, disarming the attacker with a swift and practiced move, sending the man sprawling to the ground in a heap. As the enemy scrambled to rise, Kian's hand wrapped around Rhea's arm. "This way." They bolted for the exit, but it was clear now. The mansion was no longer their escape route. The walls were closing in on them. They reached the back corridor of the mansion, but just as they thought they had found an escape, the door slammed shut behind them. They were trapped. The walls seemed to pulse with the sound of heavy footsteps, more men closing in. "Damn it!" The Kian cursed under his breath as he assessed their surroundings. "It's a dead end." Rhea's mind raced, but then something caught her attention. Hidden in the corner of the room was a vent, a small, barely noticeable escape route. "Wait," she whispered urgently, pulling Kian's arm. "The vent." Without another word, Kian grabbed her, his eyes scanning the area before he pulled her toward the small opening. It wasn't much, but it was their only shot at freedom. "Go first," he said quietly, his voice tense. "I'll cover you." Rhea didn't hesitate. She climbed into the vent, her fingers grazing the cold metal as she maneuvered her body through. It was cramped and uncomfortable, but she kept moving, knowing that Kian would be right behind her. But as she crawled deeper into the vent, she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. A voice, unmistakably Blackwood's. "You've played a good game, Kian, but you're out of moves now." Kian's pulse quickened as he listened to Blackwood's voice echo through the vents. He knew that Blackwood was close, that the final confrontation was inevitable. He wasn't just fighting for his life now. He was fighting for Rhea, for everything they had built together. "I'll give you one last chance," Blackwood's voice continued, smooth and calculated. "Leave now, and I might spare you both. Stay, and you'll both end up like your friends, dead and forgotten." Kian's eyes flickered to Rhea, who was struggling to move faster through the vent. He couldn't let her face this alone. He couldn't lose her, not after everything they had been through. But then, just as he was about to follow her into the vent, the door to the back corridor slammed open. Tara stood in the doorway, her eyes cold and filled with malice. "You really thought you could walk away from this?" Tara's voice was low, dripping with disdain.
"You're both mine now, and you're never getting out of here alive." Kian's heart thundered in his chest as he squared off with her, his eyes unwavering. "You've already lost, Tara. The game is over." But before they could make another move, the floor beneath them shifted, and a hidden passageway opened at Tara's command. It was a trap. Rhea crawled further through the vent, hearing nothing but the rushing of her own breath in her ears. She had to get out, she had to warn Kian before it was too late. But as she neared the end of the vent, she realized she wasn't alone. A shadow loomed in front of her, and before she could react, a strong hand grabbed her wrist, pulling her into the light. "Isabella, you didn't think I was just going to let you walk away, did you?" Isabella's voice was icy. She had been waiting for them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ray's breath caught in her throat. Why? Why?" Isabella laughed coldly. "Because this is how it ends, Rhea. This is how it all ends. Blackwood wins." Tara wins. And you both are just a footnote in my story. Isabella's grip tightened, but just as Rhea was about to fight back, the air around them shifted. The door burst open, and Kian appeared. His eyes blazing with fury. No, Kian said, his voice firm. You've lost. Both of you. With a swift move, he knocked Isabella back, grabbing Ray's arm and pulling her into the safety of the corridor. They were out of time and they knew it. The final battle was about to begin. And there was only one way out, take down Tara and Blackwood, or perish in the chaos of it all.
The air was thick with the weight of impending doom. Kian and Rhea stood at the edge of the grand hallway, their hearts hammering in unison. The flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows, illuminating their path forward. Tara and Blackwood were somewhere ahead, waiting, watching. Every step felt like it could be their last, yet they moved with determination. There was no going back now. Behind them, Isabella's footsteps echoed, fading into the darkness. Her words replayed in Rhea's mind. This is how it all ends. Blackwood wins. Tara wins. But Rhea refused to accept that. They weren't done yet. They still had a chance. Kian's eyes met hers, a silent promise between them. They would fight. They would not let this end in defeat. Not after everything they had been through. Not when they had finally found each other. Stay close, Kian whispered, his hand brushing hers as they moved deeper into the mansion, the walls feeling more suffocating with every second. Suddenly, the floor beneath them trembled. The doors ahead of them creaked open, revealing a large, dimly lit room. And there they were, Tara, standing with a cold, calculating expression, Blackwood beside her, as sinister and composed as ever. Well, well, Tara said, her voice dripping with amusement. You actually made it this far. I thought you'd be dead by now, but I suppose I underestimated you, Kian. She smirked, her eyes narrowing as they flickered to Rhea. And here I thought you were just a pawn in his game, but it seems you've become much more. Rhea didn't respond, but her hand instinctively reached for Kian's, their fingers entwining in a grip that said everything. This was it. They had no more room for mistakes. Blackwood stepped forward, his cold eyes locking with Kian's. You know, I really do admire your resilience, but your story ends tonight. You've spent so much time chasing ghosts, and now it's time for you to meet your end. Before Kian could retort, the sound of footsteps echoed from the shadows, and suddenly, Tara's men emerged from all corners, surrounding them in a tight circle. You're outnumbered, Kian, Tara said, her voice low, threatening. But don't worry, I'll make your death quick and painless. After all, you were my best asset. What a shame you turned against me. Kian's jaw clenched, and Rhea could feel the tension radiating off of him. He was calculating, thinking ahead. She knew that no matter how many they were up against, he would find a way out. But the question was, could they get to Blackwood and Tara before they were overwhelmed? Just then, an unexpected sound shattered the silence. The sound of a gunshot, followed by the sharp, metallic screech of the mansion's main doors bursting open. In the midst of the chaos, a figure emerged, cloaked in darkness. It was Isabella, but this time she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a group of armed men, their eyes full of purpose, each one stepping forward with a sense of duty. Kian's eyes widened in surprise, but there was no time to question. The battle had just escalated to a whole new level. Isabella gave a sly smile. You think you've won, Tara? You've underestimated me. It seems your little alliance is crumbling. Tara's eyes flickered with panic, but she quickly masked it with a sneer. You think you can take me down? You'll regret this. Rhea's heart raced as the tension in the room reached its peak. She didn't know who to trust anymore. Isabella had been their enemy, but now she was helping them? Or was she still playing her own game? Before anyone could react, Kian moved. He was a blur of motion, his instincts kicking in. He tackled one of Tara's men, his strength and speed overpowering the attacker in seconds. Rhea followed his lead, using her own training to disable one of the armed men. She was no longer the scared girl she had been when this whole ordeal started. She was strong, fierce, and ready to fight. As they fought, Tara screamed in rage. This isn't over, Kian, she yelled, but it was too late. In the chaos, Rhea spotted Blackwood. He was trying to escape through a hidden passage at the back of the room, but Rhea wasn't about to let him slip away. Not so fast, she whispered, adrenaline pumping through her veins as she chased after him. Kian noticed her movement and quickly followed, leaving the remaining men to be dealt with by Isabella and her team. The chase through the dark halls was intense, the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. Just as Blackwood reached the end of the corridor, Rhea and Kian cornered him. "This is where it ends, Blackwood," Kian said, his voice like ice. Blackwood turned, a wicked smile playing on his lips. "You think you've won? You don't understand the game. The end was always inevitable. I'm just the one who gets to pull the strings." Kian took a step forward, his face hard as stone. "Not anymore. You're done." Before Blackwood could react, a shot rang out, and the man crumpled to the floor, a dart lodged in his neck. Rhea looked over to see Isabella standing at the far end of the hall, her gun lowered. "You're welcome," she said coolly, before turning and walking away. The mansion was still, the sounds of battle now replaced with eerie silence. Kian and Rhea stood in the hallway, their bodies bruised but alive. The battle was over. Tara had been arrested, Blackwood was gone, and Isabella had disappeared into the shadows, her true motives still unclear. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. With the weight of everything they had just been through hung heavy in the air, but they had made it. Together. Kian finally broke the silence. "I never thought we'd make it out of this." Rhea smiled faintly, her hand slipping into his. "Neither did I, but we did, and we're stronger for it." Kian's gaze softened, and for the first time, Rhea saw something in him that wasn't just the cold, calculating mafia boss. There was vulnerability, a rawness that had always been there beneath the surface, waiting for her to see it. "You know," Kian said quietly, "I didn't think I could love anyone. Not after everything I've done. But with you, I don't know, Rhea. You've changed me." Rhea's heart fluttered, her feelings for him more than just words could express. "I love you too, Kian, more than you'll ever know." They stood there for a long moment, the weight of the world finally lifted off their shoulders. They had fought for their lives, their love, and now they were free to live it. But the future was uncertain, and with a world like theirs, it was never truly over. But as long as they had each other, they would face whatever came next. Together. End of story.